This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As the title slide says, we're holding our OpenNTF annual general meeting for 2022, and I'll start by saying that this is the first annual general meeting in several years, so we're wanting to get back on track. But in terms of framing sort of what OpenNTF has been doing, given that we haven't had meetings in several years, this kind of meeting in several years, we decided to sort of frame the conversation from the time that HCL acquired all of the software in the suite and talk about what OpenNTF has been doing over that period of time. In some cases, it'll be a little more general. In some cases, it'll be specific. Certainly, we're going to hold time for questions at the end so we can talk about anything that anybody has on their mind. With respect to the agenda, we are in call to order. We'll do introductions of everybody on the board. I've got a report of things that I want to share. We've got a financial report. We've got what I'm calling the project submissions report, which Jesse's going to share just on the kinds of things that have been submitted to OpenNTF over the past couple of years. Doug is here to share the technical committee report. Roberto and Sudar and Paul and Oliver are going to share some information about some of the projects that the board has been working on. And we've had one of the larger things that we've been doing this year is just considering OpenNTF in the community and what our role is, and is there anything that we can change, improve, remove that isn't used anymore, those kinds of thoughts. So we've gone through that exercise and we want to share the results of that in this meeting today for the first time. And then we'll have time at the end for open conversation and any other thoughts that folks have. So let's carry on. Introductions. We've done this in order of tenure on the board. So I will be seriously impressed if Chris has joined us. Chris Bacchus from Redshift Solutions is a business partner in Melbourne, Australia. It is 1 o'clock in the morning in Melbourne right now. I'm really happy that Chris joined the board because we want to try and have a more global reach, and certainly Asia Pacific is an area where Notes and Domino are active, and so it's awesome to have Chris representing that time zone, and we want to see if we can grow participation in OpenNTF beyond what it is, because certainly Japan has a strong group of people that are using OpenNTF and pockets of usage in China and other areas, South Korea. So let's see if we can grow that. So we're happy to have Chris on the board. He's in his first year of service to the OpenNTF board. Roberto joined us last year, ELD Engineering, business partner in Italy. I think most people are very familiar with Roberto, and he's had a wonderful influence on the board because he's not a developer. And the board of OpenNTF has primarily been made up of specifically Notes and Domino developers for a very long time. So Roberto's bringing his admin influence to the board, and it's working very well. Dan Dumont, I know Dan was planning to be attending, but had a little bit of an interruption. Anyway, Dan joins us from HCL. He joined in 2019. He's on the development team for Domino, based in Boston. Myself, I've now been on the board for 4 years, business partner based in Canada. Doug Robinson, 6 years of tenure on the board. Prominic, he represents Prominic's contribution to the board and looks after a lot of the infrastructure that we have, all of our stuff running on, based in, are you in Wisconsin, Doug? Illinois? Somewhere in central?
In Illinois, just a couple hours south of Chicago.
In Illinois, excellent. Adam Foster from Oil Business Solutions, business partner in the UK, been on the board since 2015. Howard, a business partner based in Florida, been on the board since 2014. Actually, Howard's been, I'm not sure has he been on the board since 2015? He's been treasurer for a very long time, and continues to be treasurer. Sorry, Sudar?
He was treasurer before
right.
Getting to the board. I mean, I guess it was 2014.
Okay, and been volunteering for a very long time with OpenNTF.
Yeah.
Oliver, business partner in Germany, been on the board for 8 years. Jesse, been on the board also for 8 years. Jesse is our IP manager. based in the USA, business partner. Paul Withers, formerly a business partner, now in HCL Labs, and been with HCL for a couple of years, based in the UK, and at 9 years, almost ready for his 10-year anniversary. Serdar, business partner, formerly from Turkey and now based in the UK, is celebrating his 10-year anniversary of service to the board of OpenNTF. And of course, Christian, business partner based in Switzerland, our former chairman, and also been on the board for 10 years. So just a quick thank you to everyone for your service to OpenNTF. I also want to point out that Jesse went off and very quietly, as is his way, went and got married last weekend. So congratulations to you and your wife, Jesse, on your wedding.
Thank you.
Okay, let's switch over to Chairman's report. So talking about things that have gone on since the HCL acquisition, certainly, of course, we had our 20th anniversary last December and had a lot of fun kind of making a trip down memory lane and looking at some of the contributions that OpenNTF has made to the community over the years. We also have lost some members of our community, and certainly Nathan was somebody that, of course, is very, very key in the existence of OpenNTF, and so we actually hosted an event to pay homage to Nathan's memory and say thank you. Beyond that, I think one of the biggest things that OpenNTF has done in the last couple of years, and this is behind Howard's significant contribution and effort, is starting our webinar series, which is coming into its 3rd year now. The webinars happen on a monthly basis. I think pretty much everybody here has been to an OpenNTF webinar, and almost at least half of the people here have presented at an OpenNTF webinar. So thank you very much for that. Those we're finding are quite successful, and certainly in terms of ideas of things to present, we're finding, and this comes back to Roberto's influence, that the admin side of the conversation and the webinar topics that focus on admin are very well attended. So that's something that we plan to continue, but would certainly ask for our audience and people who are participating in the community to let us know topics that they would be interested in. Something that we've circled back around on a couple of times is things like Docker. So the new tools that are, or the new technologies that we can kind of run Domino on seem to garner a lot of interest when we bring up those things. And of course, all kinds of development topics. But please keep that feedback coming to us and let us know what you'd like to see for future webinars. Jesse's going to talk about the submissions that we've had, but I think everybody's aware of sort of the state of the community. And we've certainly seen a decline in the number of projects that are being submitted to OpenNTF over the past few years. Having said that, it's not zero. I do think that Jesse probably wins the most contributions over the last few years, but that's not to say that he's the only one. There have been certainly Tom and his team ran a successful contest just recently, and we've got those submissions that have been posted to OpenNTF, and we've had several others. So I'll let Jesse follow up on that. But you know, that's, I think for all of us, it's a concern in terms of what's going on in the community and you know, the decline in usage and therefore the decline in submissions. So that's something that we've been trying to think about how we can influence and perhaps reinvigorate. As I mentioned, the contest, which I thought went very well, that's something that we want to do more of, have done very well in the past. So it's not something that's fallen off, although, well, suffice to say, we participated in the one that Tom's team initiated this year, and we want to initiate more. So I think we'll leave it at that. But the bottom line is to find other ways to encourage participation in the community is very much top of mind. We've also started internal work, and this has been slow going. Serdar and Roberto will talk about it. But looking at the vast catalog and library of projects that we have, and thinking about some of the older stuff that still has value, but how do we share that with new members of the community? How do we raise the profile of those projects? How do we make it easier to find them and that kind of thing? That's been something that we've been talking about for a while and trying to make some progress on. So Serdar and Roberto will touch on that. and work to review how we support the community. I'll talk about that at the end of this presentation. That's a lot of the things that kind of from a larger perspective, sort of future looking perspective, that we've been paying attention to. In the coming year, certainly supporting user groups and engaging with user groups. A lot of us participate in user groups in one form or another in terms of organizing them. So got a good relationship with everybody that is a user group organizer and want to continue to support them. We've thrown our financial support behind the various odd user groups, even during the pandemic, and trying to help, you know, in terms of the online costs, trying to help make those things work. From an open source perspective, I mean, that's what we're all about. So to be able to encourage new contributions, really, that's what we're paying attention to, and how can we grow that? As I mentioned, we're planning a contest in the coming year. No details yet, but that's on the list of things that we want to do. The cleanup project is pretty much tied with how we review our projects. So again, Sudhar and Roberto will talk about that. New projects. This is the one that Oliver has taken on this year, that with all of our encouragement to. One of the goals that I had with that was to make an opportunity for people who haven't potentially participated in OpenNTF before, give them an avenue to join a project. So you don't have to come up with something on your own, but if you are interested in finding out more about what it's like to be part of an open source project, we've got one on the go. And one of the things that I mentioned to Oliver as we were planning it was the idea. This is the presentation repository. Any one of us on the board of OpenNTF could build that project in a couple of days, but that's not the point. The point is to open it up for other people in the community to see what it's like to work on an open source project, and introduce people who may be new to the community what OpenNTF is about and how OpenNTF works. So that one's been moving a little bit slower. We've certainly got some people engaged, but I'm really looking as that should be an opportunity to try and bring new members into the community. One of the other things that we want to try and do, and I mentioned it off the top from a diversity standpoint, is to try and more globalize, right? Where you saw the list of people who are volunteers on the board, and it's primarily focused on North America and Europe. We want to see about engaging folks in Asia, potentially South America, other places around the world. Additional time zones. We've got a pretty interesting challenge when it comes to time zones and scheduling meetings. I tend to do meetings at 6 o'clock in the morning, and Chris is on at 11 o'clock at night. But that's okay. That's awesome. I think it's fantastic to be able to have folks around the world who are using Lotus Notes participate in the board. All right, moving on to our financial report. In terms of, so I've broken this down into where has our money come from in the past, what are our expenses for the last few years, where do we expect to get money from in the future, and what are our in the short term anyway, our planned expenses. So we did receive the contribution from HCL in 2020. There was some money in the bank account from IBM at that point, but we were probably within a year of running out of money based on the contributions that we make to user groups and the other things that we spend money on. As it says there at the bottom of the expenses, it's approximately $6,000 US per year that we have from an expenses standpoint. And again, that's primarily supporting user groups. We do have a subscription to go to for running the webinars, which is money well spent because it really helps us manage just questions and recording and a whole lot of things, communication. It just makes it really easy. So that's a worthwhile subscription. Other things are minor expenses in terms of paying for our domain licensing and taxes. So in general, it's plus or minus. Certainly the pandemic saw it fall off, and that's why we haven't gone back to HCL to talk about additional funding, primarily because we didn't spend money at as much of a clip as we had been leading up to that point. So one of the other things I wanted to make a note in terms of income, going back 10 years and more, I think everybody's familiar with the banner ads that used to be on openntf.org. Those are still available for use if somebody wants to have a banner on openntf.org, that would be additional income that we could generate. Again, knowing that there's been a decline in traffic and whatnot, it's not a surprise that we haven't had people reaching out to us to do banner ads. So really, we're kind of reduced to planning out. HCL actually has a very well organized process for saying, what are the activities that you want to do and how can we help fund them. So we just haven't had to go back to them yet and talk to them about that since the contribution that they made in 2020. We were considering doing that this year, which led to us doing a more detailed look at what's the future of OpenNTF and where would we spend money if we were, planning on changing things. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But anyway, we haven't needed to do that. And I don't anticipate that we'll need to do that next year either. So for the coming year, really, again, focusing on sponsoring the user groups and hopefully getting to a place where everybody can get back together in person. I know Engage was well attended and everybody was happy to see each other again. So we want to get back to that point. And then spend more money on contests and again, try and entice people to make contributions to OpenNTF that way. And then, kind of the standard operating costs. Maybe I'll take a quick pause there and have a drink if anybody has any comments or questions just quickly. All right.
There's a question about OpenNTF contributions. Are we going to answer all of them at the end, or are you going to answer it now?
Well, if there were kind of quick questions, I think specifically to, okay, so I see, Yvonne, you've made a question or a comment there. Is that what you mean, Roberto, that we kind of deal with them on a slide-by-slide basis? Yeah, if they're kind of quick questions, I wouldn't want to get down into the weeds on things. We can save that for the end, but if there's quick questions that we can answer, certainly that would be fantastic. So Yvonne, your comment about wanting to make some donations on a regular basis, that would be wonderful. In fact, we'll hold that comment for a moment because we're going to get to Discord, and Dan will talk about what we're doing with Discord, and that might be a neat opportunity for you to make contributions. But absolutely, anybody who wants to make a contribution, we're happy to talk to you, so we can connect on that later. Thank you. Okay, so let's transition over to Jesse for project submissions report.
All right, so I want to talk a bit about the project submissions that we've had historically and recently, and also the role of IP management. A little bit about that history and why it's important. So the IP manager role is something that was originally filled, as I know, by Peter Tanner, who was working for IBM. They actually allocated some time for him. That was something he had X number of hours per week or per month, and that was his role for OpenNTF, is that he would check through all of these things. He used some IBM tools and his accrued knowledge to check through these things. Eventually, he wanted to retire from this position. IBM had kind of stopped funding that as well, but it was also he just wanted to, and so he looked for a replacement. And I took this on a volunteer basis, where I was never really, I'm certainly not a lawyer. I was never an IP specialist before, but he was quite good at guiding me through all this stuff and instilling an appreciation for it. So now it's been something I've been doing for, I don't know, a good while, like 4 or 5 years maybe. Conveniently for me, the number of submissions has also been much less than when he was doing it, so it's an easier job now. but it's still, I think, very important. And if you're inclined to be interested in interesting stuff's going on, the process itself that goes on is largely the same. So there are some tools that are used that kind of look through. Mostly they look for telltale signs and things like, does something say license? So it's very easy, for example, to have an NSF where you said, oh, I built a little web app and then I just put jQuery in there. You have to declare that. It is legal to include jQuery, but like that's the sort of thing that these tools will check for and say, hey, this says this is specifically this license, which means you have to declare it. And so that's where you get into license files and notice files and including legal directories and things like that. And so it'll help that. I haven't, Fortunately, since I am a programmer, I was able to automate some of this stuff a little more. And, I have one of my projects, the NSF ODP tooling, will help with extracting NSFs and searching for all this stuff. So it's a little less manual, but it's still the sort of thing where it's like, I would love to be able to have like a kind of pre-check to do this automatically rather than being in, manual with tools. But still, the check itself is fairly manual, and there's always going to have to be a level where somebody will look at it and say, just because there are things where, for example, there'll be like a snippet that you get from someone else, you have to make sure that you have permission for that. If it's not licensed, you have to track the person down, all this stuff. And so there are certain parts of this that kind of are inherently manual and inherently personal, but there are other areas that I would love to automate some more, which I suppose would actually be a good project to add to OpenNTF. And along similar lines, so there's, that's the process that I go through when somebody has submitted a project, but there's also the earlier process of signing up to submit projects. So we have the CLAs, the contributor something or other agreements, license, I don't know, legal agreements. We have the ones for individuals and we have the ones for corporations, for companies. And that is also slightly manual. So with that, you download a PDF and you sign it, and either sign electronically or scan it and send that in, and then I will set you up. That whole process, both the terminology and the actual process itself, I believe, was based largely on the Eclipse Foundation, who are kind of our guiding light as far as IP rules and a lot of other things go. I mean, they're significantly larger, but they also have all of their ducks in a row. This also made sense coming from an IBM environment because Eclipse is more or less an offshoot of IBM, and they have internalized and codified a lot of that kind of the IBM knowledge of how you're supposed to do these things. But over the years, they have streamlined this process a bit. I think now you can do your CLA entirely electronically, and so it takes, I mean, you can do it now, but it takes a bit of that kind of back and forth away. So that's something that I would love to have some time to clean that up, make it a little smoother. It's one of those sorts of things that's, like, strictly speaking, not that onerous, but I remember the days when I was not the IP manager and these things seemed a lot more onerous than they do when I'm running them. And so it would be nicer to just have some of these things smoothed out. So these are some of the things that, I personally and we as a board would like to kind of clean up, make these things a little faster and smoother. And then to talk about the projects a little bit now. So, OpenNTF was definitely originally focused heavily on Notes apps and related components. So there was the OpenNTF mail template and things like that. And, this was pre-X pages and pre-Java being a dominant force. And so it was definitely focused on those things. There were things like Garnet, which was basically just taking the servlet stuff and trying to get that working. But mostly it was about Note stuff. But then we had kind of a big heyday when XPages was around. Well, I mean, it still is, but when XPages was a big pushed thing, we had vendor contributions like the XPages extension library, and we had tons and tons of snippets and custom controls and things like that. And these things still roll in periodically, but kind of that, both because of the diminished activity in XPages generally, and also just the way that the more complicated the task you want to solve, the more complicated your project is probably going to be, kind of lessen some of those things. And we've since reached a period where the vast majority of the contributions are either infrastructural projects like all of mine, so things like the Jakarta EE support or OpenNTF Domino API, or related things like how I've started maintaining POI for XPages just to kind of keep it going. Or we have now seen, since kind of the old ways are practical again, thanks to Nomad. So because there isn't a path to running Notes related Java code on mobile devices currently, Nomad has rejuvenated, unfortunately, LotusScript libraries and things like that. And so we have some LotusScript JSON tools and related projects that will run entirely just with non-Java client code, and that has kind of given another life to those. And we've seen a slight uptake for those sorts of things, and it would make sense for more of that. So fortunately, recently we did have the contest that it wasn't our contest, but we were pleasantly involved to create some some apps that will work well with Nomad, and so having that kind of thing to bring that sort of thing in is I think beneficial to us and good in general, and it does make sense. So the more of that, the better. And that does get a little bit to the sort of thing that Graham was hinting at, where we would love to be able to kind of increase contributions. I mean, it's easy to just say, oh, we would love more contributions, and to a certain extent, like we on the board can and do make contributions, and so that's one thing. But one of the things that we as an organization, it definitely gets beyond the submissions report, would love to do is increase the number of contributions on a regular basis, saying like we just have more stuff flowing, kind of like the old days. And some of this I believe is would be aided by making that process smoother. Some of it will be aided by just things like newer era and rejuvenated HCL platforms that make it easier to share this sort of thing. And we would love to have more individual contributions. We have over the years had a few projects that grew into like larger teams. So if you look at a larger open source organization, you'll have projects that have their own committees and their own contributor lists and things like that. But our projects are not generally that size. We have had a few, like outside of the platform vendor, ODA was the most successful by far of these, where we had at times an active team of like 5 people working on it. We have had a few since then where it'll either be a few people working on it at the same time or kind of changing hands and multiple people over time, like with Poi for X pages. That was Christian's baby, and then I updated it to Poi 5 recently, that sort of thing. We would also love to have more of that sort of thing. We have considered like how structured can we make this stuff, but I feel like we need to have the projects before we have the structure. In this sense, and so that's kind of the overall gist of project submissions, where the things that are running, and we do still have projects coming through, but we would love to find ways to bring in more things, like whether it's just actively creating projects, like how Graham talked about. We want to have more internal projects and have people brought in for that, or things that I'd like to do, or just ways that we can encourage people to submit more. So finding out what makes it an impediment, what either because it's not something that somebody thinks of doing, or because somebody thinks of doing it and it's too annoying or too difficult, which those are potentially real things that I would like to improve. But those are the sorts of things we'd like to do. We like to just smooth that process and get things going as much as possible. Like, we want OpenNTF to be the place where you go when you want to find some software that you want to put, like, run on Domino. Like, I want to do X, Domino doesn't do it by default. And by Domino, I really mean all of HCL's platforms. Like, Domino has been wildly dominant as far as submissions go, but for any of their tools, as we can, we would love to have apps and libraries that work with, the Volt and et cetera, and the various different platforms that they use. We've done stuff with connections in the past, that sort of thing. But we would love to be the place you look when you want to solve something, or if you have solved something and you want to share it, we want to be that place as well. So those are the kinds of things that we have done, we have been doing, and would like to do. So I will now hand it back to Graham.
Excellent, thank you, Jesse. By all means, please use the chat for ongoing questions and conversation, and we can answer those questions as we're going along here. I've just found that because I'm sharing, I can't actually type in the chat, so I'll let others on the board comment. Okay, let's move along. We are in technical committee. By the way, I don't see Doug. Sorry, I do see Doug. I don't see Dan. Has anybody got any chat from Dan about whether he's running behind? I know he had some stuff going on at home that was slowing him down.
No news.
Nothing. Okay, well, we'll potentially hold for Dan's stuff when he can join us, but Doug, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am currently the board representative from Prominic.net. Our partnership with OpenNTF actually stretches far back before my time to 2006, so it's been a great 16 years, and previously the Prominic representative was Justin Hill, whom many of you will of course know. The conversation about infrastructure over the last few years, it somewhat parallels what HCL has been saying about their inheritance of Domino, is that there was some technical debt that they had to clear away. And there's been a push over the last few years to get everything at OpenNTF updated and modernized. So we are running on the latest versions of Domino now, which we hadn't been for a little bit. Getting the newest features like Volt made available to the community. Also, we have been retiring some services, such as the Wiki project had grown outdated and was no longer in use, and so we've been cutting some of the fat there, as well as with some of the old dev and test servers that had just years worth of access configured on them that we didn't necessarily want to retain. Found those services to be no longer in use, and we've been right-sizing things. And that's mostly where we are at this point, is having a sleek operation in terms of infrastructure, and also taking back some of those resources and having the ability to add new features as things come from HCL, I think is a pretty good summary of the last few years.
Awesome, thanks. I'm going to add that we'll be having a board meeting and talk about the technical committee is one of the standing agenda items. So we'll talk about something or other. And again, I think we all know the power of Domino, but we'll mention something needs to be taken care of. And usually by the end of the meeting, which is typically about an hour, Doug will say, okay, I got that fixed. And we're just like, yeah, that's just awesome. Okay, we'll hold Dan's stuff. Maybe Jesse, I'll give you a heads up that if Dan doesn't join by the time we're through the rest of the slides, I'll get you to come back and talk about Discord. And if anybody does see Dan join along the way, just shout at me and we'll jump back to his stuff. Okay, board projects. Roberto, you're up.
Hi. Well, as Graham was saying, we have some internal projects to clean up some old things that are still working but can be done better. And I'm working on the what we call directory cleanup project, because our directory, when people register into OpenNTF, we have a directory to hold their names, has grown to more than 80,000 entries. And most of them are duplicates. And I had a report from someone recently who tried to create a project that he could not log in, and we have to work around it because actually there are 5 logins for a single person, and you can't remember which one you used and the password. Plus, there are some fancy names that people use, which may be reasonable, but we can't have more than 40 people named Domino admin in the directory. So we are undertaking a project to clean up this. We still have to define all the details. And we would like to hear your feedback. For example, one extreme would be to make everyone not register again, but at least confirm the email address. The other opposite is leave things as they are, but quickly becomes unmanageable. So everything in the middle is fair game. So if you have any suggestions, we'll try to keep them in mind. Otherwise, it's basically me and Sardar with the rest of the board that we will do the cleanup of the directory. And I'll leave it to Sardar for the project experience.
Hi. Yeah, okay, projects. So we have another long-standing plan to clean up projects in parallel to the directory cleanup, as you heard from Roberto. So this problem of projects is also a complicated one. This is an untouched area since 2010. In 2010, we have incorporated OpenNTF and brought IP clearance to the project. At the time, we have reorganized everything related to project, including the interface. And we have not touched much out of, I mean, a couple of cosmetic changes. But IP clearance, first of all, was a potential issue on our side. I mean, there are projects coming from old ages. Some are hidden, some are not hidden, but maybe potentially problematic from the IP point of view. So basically, we need an archival process in the queue. And apart from that, you know, the project's OpenNTF project is a virtual placeholder in reality on the site. So it can have a download or not. We have some projects that never came up with a release in their lifetime. Some prematurely stopped at an early phase. So in addition to archival, there's a cleanup will be done. But apart from that, I mean, as Jesse explained a little bit, from the consumer and from the contributor point of view, we need some improvements in the project's interface. As I said, we have not touched anything about the interface. One cool thing we are planning is to have some sort of compatibility matrix in the projects page. Even though, you know, Notes and Domino miraculously run applications even from our runtimes, it's not valid for every project, of course. Some, especially older applications, would just, I don't know, they might just need a couple of makeups, but for our shiny Notes 12 client, but especially plugins and X pages, we know they are picky about different versions. So we are planning to allow creators and users to create a compatibility matrix, so you would know if the project has been tested or used in a specific version before download. This feature is, of course, something we will request help from everyone when we open that. So we can crowdsource such a matrix with all users of projects. We are also aware of some functional and visual changes needed around project interface, and everyone is welcome to provide more feedback around this. From the contributor point of view, I mean, we definitely need to invest some thoughts into it. There are multiple topics around here. First, I mean, we need to simplify the contributing experience. We have got some feedback about one feedback related with directory cleanup mostly, but people find it a little bit difficult to contribute a new code. So we have to simplify this experience and we have to provide more ways to make a code contribution. And last AGM, it was several years ago, we talked about getting Atlassian Suite into life, working with Bamboo, Stash, Confluence, and other tools. This plan has worked perfectly in many areas, but it didn't make the progress we needed in the couple of years. So as the board, we are looking into the future of this Atlassian Suite, and we all agree that we need a better integration with GitHub, especially GitHub or Bitbucket or whatever. And because, you know, projects are not NSF databases anymore, and GitHub provides much more dynamic environment for developers, and some developers want to use GitHub more, and more integration would be available in the future. So our call to every contributors in the space would be to let us know what you need in the project interface, and how would we get more feedback for benefit from GitHub or Bitbucket or other Git-based sites. And that's all from my side for now, and we will talk further based on feedbacks later. Graham?
All right, you stole my thunder a little bit for the next slide, but that's okay. Paul, take it away on snippets.
Thanks. Yes, so we're moving now on to just some reminders on a couple of areas that OpenNTF are involved in. And the first one is snippets. This was X-snippets. Now that things have moved much wider again, it's just the OpenNTF snippets site. But a couple of points worth noting here. The first one is that because these are much smaller chunks of code, they're not going to have third-party projects that are delivered with them. They're literally just a small chunk of code, and therefore there isn't a requirement here to sign a CLA before contributing a snippet. All of the snippets will be by the process of putting them on the site. You are defining that you're happy for them to be Apache licensed, and that you have the right for them to be Apache licensed. That's standard for other snippet sites out on the web beyond the Domino environment. So any snippet there will be Apache licensed, and there's no requirement to sign a CLA beforehand. The other thing that I want to draw attention to is that these aren't just for X pages, and they're not just for code, and they're not even just for Domino. When you select a language, there are all sorts of topics there that you can pick from. Everything from X pages, server-side JavaScript, client-side JavaScript, XML, through LotusScript, generic JavaScript, Vault JavaScript, specifically for stuff that you would put into Vault, DQL, admin scripts, JavaScript for ICEC or Connections Customizer, cascaded style sheets for Connections Customizer. So there's a broad range there. And if there's something that you have a snippet on that doesn't fall into one of those particular categories, then let us know, and we can add a category to that. There's also the ability there to specify favorites once you're logged in, so that you can pick out the favorites that you keep coming back to and keep forgetting what they are. There's also the ability when you create a snippet to preview it as well. So there's a broad range of functionality there. There's a broad range of audiences. There's a broad range of potential contributors. And if there's any additional features that you need, by all means, reach out to us on the Discord.
Thank you, Paul. Oliver, you're up on collaboration today.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, there's not much to say about collaboration today. I would say it's something that just works like Domino just works in most cases, but it only works because of the helping hands of various people moderating stuff that they find on the net. So it's not just looking at Planet Lotus. It is one of the main parts, looking at Planet Lotus and see what's interesting there. The problem of that website is in some cases that other topics chime in there, because it's not only people that blog about HCL products or topics, included. So I think it's important to even filter it down a bit and see what we can extract from everything that's around here. And I came to that responsibility for collaboration today 2015, I think. I can't remember exactly. I joined the board, I think, 2014, and 1 year later, I got it from Niklas, and also on the technical side. And I see some names here in the participant list who also worked on the first version of it. I mean, Per, for example, Zada, of course, and but I have to say I didn't change much in the past years. I modified or added some categories, which is something that you really have to know because it's not very intuitive how it's done. But yeah, that's all I did. And as I said, it lives from the contribution of the moderators. There are actually more moderators registered and could be able to moderate stuff there. If you look at the about page, you can see all the names, and in most cases you will recognize those names. But I have to say that currently there is a hardcore moderation team that covers it all, and but it's working fine. So, and it's not causing too much work. Because we are all busy in our main day jobs, and everything that will help us to be fast in doing what we are doing. Yeah, that's always a good thing if you can do things fast. And I all I can say is that I'm also open, or we are open to new contributors, of course. If you feel like you see different stuff than we do and you want to add something, then just tell us via Discord. I have to say Discord now because we are going to move them to a Discord. That's something that you could do, but if you want to do it actively, so you find something and you want to be able to add it on Collaboration Today's website in that stream, then also reach out to us. And if you have a login for OpenNTF for the website, then you are also able to moderate it, or you could be enabled to be a moderator. So that's the precise description. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that little website.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, I see Dan has joined. Let's go back a slide. Dan's got some.
I don't know if you can hear that, but
Yes.
you might
Yeah,
want Jesse to cover it.
Okay, Dan's got construction noise in his background. So Jesse, you get to talk about Discord.
Sure thing. So a few months ago, and this was like always on the horizon, but it started becoming a problem, which is that on Slack's free plan, you are limited to X number of messages across all of the channels in your Slack community. This was basically fine because this was spawned as well. We don't really want to use Skype for this anymore, and we do want to have active, persistent chat. And so we moved to Slack, and it's fine. We figured, well, we'll deal with this later. So this year was later, and so we started looking into our options. Our first thought was like, well, could we just pay for Slack? Like, we're fine. Like with GoToMeeting here and other things, like we're fine paying for things that are worth it. However, because of how the US works, I guess, we're not quite the right kind of nonprofit to qualify for their nonprofit plans. And their pricing for like, because basically we'd be acting like a company. And for a community of our size, even if we were to like try to actively trim it down, it would be onerous. It would just be just way too much. It would deplete our coffers extremely quickly and just would not be worth it for the purposes of like, well, we want to keep some text chat around. So we considered our other options and we settled on Discord. So Discord, this has been very, very convenient for me since I've been using Discord for years anyway. Discord is very Slack-like, but also is just, as it turns out, better for communities. So by default, history is forever with their plans, and just like, so kind of like the free stuff that we got was already noticeably better than Slack. So it has better like kind of voice chat channels where you can sit in there. I mentioned that the text chat will last forever, and it just ended up on its own better. It also is just more geared towards kind of a community. Like, it was originally made, or at least primarily popular for gaming communities, but it grew beyond that, but took a lot of those lessons. So it has support for things like, here are the rules of this community, here is here's some onboarding steps, and it has good bots for managing this stuff. Dan found an excellent one that does a lot of the busy work for us of people have to read the rules and agree to them, etc. And then it also has a nicer funding model. So, Discord's a company. They're not looking to give this all away for free for no reason. So its funding model is done via one of the funding models is done via server boosts. So the way this works is that there are multiple tiers of features that you get for your Discord server, and those are unlocked by giving boosts to each one. So the first tier you get for 2 boost levels. And so we, as OpenNTF, subsidize this, and that got us better. It got us more emojis. It got us better audio and video quality when we're doing voice chats and video chats in there. Like, we run our board meetings in there now. And then there are several other layers. Most of them are more things like even better video quality, better, higher file upload size limits. So the file upload size right now, I don't know what it's capped at, but it's not high. But if we were to get to level 2, that is something that would actually be beneficial, because it would be nice to be able to attach files and not have to say, oh, I'll put it in Dropbox to put it in chat or whatever. And so this is something where, if you are interested in supporting OpenNTF in a small way, you could get some boosts and give them to our server. So there's a yearly thing. There's this whole thing called Discord Nitro, where you get other features, but then you get 2 boosts to give to a server. So we would love it if we could get to at least level 2. So we get a nice little banner, we get that better file upload sort of thing. But this could be a way, if you just feel like, you know what, I want to toss a couple bucks a year their way. I forget what the numbers are, but they're not, certainly for like corporate donations, they're tiny. So you could do that, and as a nice way to support the community. We just need like a couple people doing that kind of thing, and we could get up to the higher levels. There, beyond the next level, there's nothing that we urgently need to have, but they're all nice to haves, and it's a good way to I feel. You also get a different you get a nice little badge on your icon. So that's the most important thing when you chat. You get a little supporter badge. So you get all the nice little gamification things like that. So that's kind of where we want to build things up. So we started it out as kind of a soft launch where we had just us, and then we had a couple people from the ambassadors join in, and then we announced it in Slack, and then recently we put it on the website. We're going to push this more because it is our intent to move over to here. In time, Slack will go read only. It's not yet. We'll get a little more annoying in Slack, saying, hey, by the way, we should go over to Discord. And then in time, we will just say, okay, well, Slack will stay up because it's not costing us anything, but we will make all the channels read only. So at that point, all conversation should happen in Discord. So we're doing this slow. We're not trying to be, obviously it is inherently a little disruptive, but we're trying to minimize that. And we do think that the benefits wildly outweigh disruption. Like, it has been, it's certainly much better on a administrative side. I think it's just a better experience all around. Like, the features are just a better match for a community like ours. Like, Slack for an open community has always been like a little awkward. Like, it's very clearly intended for, this is your company's work chat, and then using it as an open source community always kind of works, but it's not a perfect match, whereas Discord is intended much, much more for this sort of thing. And I think it's been proving itself very good for us, and hopefully for everybody else as well. And if you have not yet joined, we would love if you did. So back to Graham.
Sure. Dan, do you have anything you want to add on top of that, despite the background noise?
No, he covered it great. Maybe since the link isn't clickable on this slide, you could put it in the comments or something. I don't know if you have that easily available. Absolutely. Or you know what, I can go grab one from the Discord.
Yeah, there it is. Jesse already did it. And the other thing too is all of this information is on OpenNTF.org, so you can go there and read the blog post. Jesse, I'm thinking that we probably want to get detailed in terms of what the boosts are and how they work and how people can make a contribution to OpenNTF through a boost. And then we can have that as a sort of a permanent reference on the page, unless that's already been written, has it?
I think I mentioned that on there. I don't think I think I just talked about how boosts exist, and then when you log into Discord, it's more than happy to tell you how you can give Discord money.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. All right. And in terms of the eventually timeline, we have talked about actually shutting down Slack before the end of this year, and even before the end of this board year, which is the end of September. So we are all active on Discord. Certainly encourage folks who want to join over there and engage us there. I know there's a lot of people who are comfortable with Slack, and that's great, but we are losing that history, and that's our motivation for moving the conversation over. I saw a conversation actually last week that was some really valuable feedback and a good conversation, and I thought, oh man, we're gonna lose that. So it really is important that we get moved over to Discord so that we don't lose those conversations and that history. And hey, I've got this problem. How do I solve this problem? Somebody can actually search and find that. So we're going to be discontinuing Slack, or at least turning it to read only within the next few months. Okay, so the last part of our presentation, and look at that, we've used almost the entire hour that I wanted to have. Okay, so I'll get through this. I don't want to rush this, but I do want to leave time for questions. Thanks, Yvonne, for joining. So I'm going to try and get through this as quick as possible so that we do have an opportunity for conversation. But anyway, we'd like to announce the results of the work that we've done this year to consider what works for OpenNTF, what isn't working for OpenNTF, what can we change, what can we add, and try to improve things. And this is what we've boiled it down to. So from a community building and engagement standpoint, I mean, that's really the purpose of OpenNTF, to share the tools that we know work in the community and make them available to other people in the community. So in terms of how do we do that, beyond the uploading of projects, obviously supporting events, we'll continue to do that. That's something that works and we enjoy, and we have positive feedback on, so we're going to keep doing that. Facilitating attention to our contributors, projects, and activities. This is something that we do, but I think we can do a little bit better, and Sardar touched on this a little bit. But all of the things that we do, webinars, giving people the opportunity to present their contributions to OpenNTF, recording videos about their contributions to OpenNTF, and of course we do the blogging and as Oliver mentioned, boosting other people's blogs through collaboration today, and obviously our participation in user groups. All positive things, all things that we want to continue. One of the things that we did get as feedback, though, is that some people, even recently as engaged, some people said they didn't know that OpenNTF had a Slack channel and the ability to do real-time engagement with other folks. And so we thought, okay, well, why don't people know that we had a Slack channel? And how do we do a better job of that? So that's feedback that we've taken about how do we get the message out wider. The people who know about OpenNTF know about OpenNTF. The people who don't know about OpenNTF, we aren't getting into their feeds, however that might be done. So we want to go off and do some work to figure out how we can do a better job of that. Perhaps spending some time with HCL and HCL marketing and the HCL channels that are reaching out to customers and users of Notes Domino and all the rest of the tools, and getting our message out that way. So some work needs to be done there. That's something that we want to add and focus on. And then invitations to community members who haven't participated in the past but are active today. And as I said before, a global view. So getting into folks in Asia Pacific, there's little pockets of participation, but we want to try and grow that. And certainly the HCL acquisition has opened up Notes and Domino to other folks that wouldn't have known about it in the past. So how do we make sure that those folks know about OpenNTF and being able to participate? The other one, and Sardar mentioned this as we were talking about it, is that in the past, certainly when Nicholas from IBM was kind of dedicated to OpenNTF, he was reaching out to folks in the community who were participating and posting stuff, but maybe not engaging with OpenNTF, and making formal invitations to say, hey, what you did was great. You want to share that on OpenNTF, and let me tell you more about OpenNTF. So that's something that we want to add in terms of how we get more folks into the community. Speaking about contributor relations, again, this is something that Sudar has brought up in the past. The onboarding and the support, clearly we know we've had feedback, direct feedback, that our contribution process is not as streamlined as it needs to be. And we've talked about how we want to evolve that, whether that's GitHub or other thoughts. So how do we make it easy? You know, yes, there's the CCLA or the ICLA process to be a formal member of OpenNTF before you make a larger contribution. As Paul said, you don't have to go through that process if you want to post a snippet. But we want to just go back and look at how all of that is working and make it easier. And again, that touches on what Roberto was saying about the directory being a bit of a swamp. So how do we streamline those things? That's part of what we want to pay attention to in the coming year. Continuing on, webinars, I think, again, kudos to Howard for really making that go. That I think is a really strong contribution that we're making to the community. But Oliver brought up the idea of a repair cafe. And the concept there is, in real life, there's some fix-it type people that show up at a whatever community center or school parking lot and say, hey, if you got something that's broken and you want to get it fixed, bring it on over and we'll fix it. So bringing that idea to Notes Domino and all the rest of the software products, we host an hour on Discord where we're online, and if somebody's got a developer problem or an admin problem, regardless of the tool, bring it in and you can ask for free. We'll have people just kind of hanging out and just being able to engage with the community and solve those kinds of problems. So that's something we've been trying to incubate a little bit. Certainly would be interested in feedback from the community on what those thoughts are and whether that's something that makes sense. Sudar, I see you're unmuted. Did you want to jump in on something? No? Okay.
No, it's just I was going to talk. I was going to add a thing for the previous slide, but I can wait until the end. No problem.
No, please jump in. Go ahead. It's all good.
Okay. One thing you already mentioned incubating projects, and the other thing was ideas needs matching, which is one more thing in the same spot actually. This is something we don't really need to develop any complicated thing, but just to tell people about it. I mean, we have lots of ideas around everything, and mostly projects are coming out if a capable developer has a great idea to implement, and that's always as it was. But also I know developers eager to contribute but without any ideas, and in the same way there are non-developers with great ideas or simple needs, just need something simple as a project, and OpenNTF would be a perfect platform for these two groups of people. And we would at this point encourage all developers to let us know if they have time or energy to commit something, but they have no idea, of course. And also everyone is welcome to put their ideas into one of proper Discord channels. So let others see what kind of idea, and they can spark maybe an inspiration to another developer. And one last thing, I mean, to add to Graham about incubating these new projects, as Graham mentioned, Niklas has done this more than once, and I am one of this product. I mean, Niklas personally invited me to X snippets and collaboration today projects, so that was the start of my OpenNTF days. And we wish to create new projects, new community projects like XNPS and collaboration today. And one of the recent examples is presentation repository project. Maybe Oliver would add a couple of sentences at the end of the presentation about that. This is an ongoing thing. That's all.
Okay, yeah, actually, thanks for raising that. The ideas needs matching is a neat concept, and in fact, in the chat here right now, Mats is asking about little admin tips and tools that might help folks. And you know, I think one of the best ways of thinking about it in terms of open source is a lot of us over the years have had some particular need that we've had to solve. And I'm very much more a developer than an admin, but you know, one of the best examples is that you go into the Domino directory and you create a view that sorts groups by the members, categorizes groups by the members of those groups. It's one of my default things that I do because I know that it's a powerful thing that I need. And I'm sure almost everybody does that, but maybe they don't. Maybe there's some solution that I use that works for me that I think obviously everybody else would know about, but maybe they don't. And it might be stupid and small and tiny and insignificant, but it could save somebody else a huge amount of time. And it's just one tiny little thing. It's kind of those things that are the most powerful over my entire Domino career. The best things where you hear somebody talking about something and you're like, tell me a little bit more about that. And in minutes, I remember Nathan talking about something at Lotusphere one time where we were just having a beer, and it blew my mind. And it took very little time to understand, and was really cool and something that I had never ever thought about before. So that's the power of what we're talking about in terms of being able to share these things with the community. So Roberto, maybe make a note. I'd love to get into Discord and from an admin standpoint, say, you know, what's your favorite hack? What's your favorite little tool? What's your favorite little something that you've built for yourself? And see if we can engage in a conversation there that bubbles some stuff to the surface that we can share with everybody in the community.
Yeah, you want to create maybe a separate channel for that, or just
I don't think so.
general?
I think the admin channel is fine to do that in. Let's not turn this into a wasteland of channels. That's something
Yeah,
that
right.
I think.
Also, I forgot that Oliver answered that we already have an admin snippet category. So if you look at there are 4 examples of scripts in LotusScript done contributed by Keith Brooks. So if you have an agent or a hack, as Graham said, that works for you and you want to share it, and you don't want to make a project out of it, a complete NSF or whatever, and post it as a project, just put it in the snippet.
Absolutely.
I guess that, I don't know if the format of the snippet as it is works for an idea, like what you say, how to create a view that shows people by group, whatever. It's just a description and a formula, but we'll find a way to accommodate this. And these are kind of things that would be really appreciated. And I talk, as Graham said, as an admin in the board. And I'd love personally to see more admin hacks and things like this present on our website. So if you have anything, just contribute there. Get in touch with us. Exactly. There is the Domino admin channel rather than the Domino dev. Feel free to join us there and let's discuss this.
No idea is too small.
No.
Okay, let's wrap it up here. So just following on the community education training videos, we've talked about training videos. You know, I think people have seen the videos that I've done, that we've all done. I've got a bit of a formula. I'm happy to, if you as somebody who wants to make a contribution isn't comfortable doing videos or doesn't know how to do videos, that's another thing that you can reach out to OpenNTF to, and we can put it together and we can host it for you, or we can help you generate the video and you can host it yourself, whatever. But anything that you think might be of interest, again, no idea is too small. Start small. Let's have some fun with it. So again, an opportunity to encourage folks in the community who haven't done a video before. We've got an avenue to be able to do those kinds of things. From an HCL relations standpoint, you know, we had talked about the fact, and it was mentioned earlier, about how IBM leveraged OpenNTF as an avenue to more quickly release the XPages extension library at the time. And that's not really something that we've had a conversation with HCL about doing in the future. So that was something that we felt was worthwhile to add to our list and you know, re-engage HCL from a relations standpoint. I don't want to minimize the fact that we do have an excellent relationship with HCL, and of course, to employees of HCL on our board. Certainly, the Digital Solutions Academy, we have a wonderful relationship with, and Roberto manages that relationship with Tiffany. So in fact, our next webinar is going to be jointly presented between OpenNTF and HCL Digital Solutions Academy. So we do have good relationship from that perspective, but I think we can do more. So that's something that we're taking upon ourselves to grow. And then, of course, all of the things that we are doing in terms of collaboration today and contests and other things that are still working are on our plans for carrying forward and continuing to do. And that wraps up our presentation section. We've still got 20 minutes left in our time slot where we can engage with questions, and I'm happy to have people unmute themselves, but I would ask that use the chat to kind of put your hand up to say if you've got a question, or maybe ask your question in the chat, and then we can have you unmute and be able to have that conversation. So please, if you've got other thoughts on what we've talked about, other ideas, we'd love to hear them now.
I'd like to add a thing. I don't know if people remember that we had started a project a while ago of the community guides. If someone has written a step-by-step guide on a particular topic, installing these, configuring that, and then we agreed, and we go back to what Graham said, the relationship with Digital Solution Academy, that we will hand over that task to the Academy. So if you have such a material, feel free to get in touch with us, and I will do the job of contacting the Digital Solution Academy. So eventually the manual that you write, the guide, will be published by the Digital Solution Academy, which is the way that we have decided not to duplicate the effort, since they already publish material done by ambassadors, by not only by HCL people. We funnel our idea of creating user guides into that. So it's still a project going on. So if you have any material about that, developer, admin, whatever, feel free to contribute and talk with us.
I was on mute there. While we're waiting, I want to call out a couple of people who are in attendance here. Per Henrik Lauston is in attendance. Per is a former board member of OpenNTF and has made a lot of contributions. Per, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. And Javier Sanchez is in attendance. Javier participated in the contest, and his submission has been posted on OpenNTF, the most recent contest that we were talking about, the Tom's group organized. So Javier, thank you for your contribution, and good to see you here. Thanks everybody for joining today. Other questions, other thoughts? Oliver?
I know. I just wanted to say something stupid. I just wanted to say they are all very impressed, and therefore there's silence right now.
Well, I think everybody's busy. Maybe a question about the kinds of things. Well, actually, you know what? No, I'll change it. I got a quick story to share. I've recently joined a project for a company that is upgrading a lot of Domino servers. And just in my travels in that project was speaking to one of my contacts at the customer site, and mentioned during the conversation that I was on the OpenNTF board. And he says, oh, we use a tool. I got a tool that I downloaded from OpenNTF. He says, I'm sure you know about it, a tool called Data Moving Animal. I had never heard about it before. And when I actually used it, I'm like, wow, this is a really slick tool. So if anybody needs to, and I have written a lot of code over the years to import and export to Excel. This data moving animal tool looks like it's been around for quite a good long time, and is really easily configurable. It's almost exactly like LEI in a sense, but it interacts with Excel. And so I'm waiting for us to be able to say runs with, because I've run it with Domino 12, so I know we've got a particular project that's been on OpenNTF for a good long time that actually works on V12. But that's the kind of thing that we want to get to, is, you know, those tools that you've downloaded and used, or even uploaded and used. And if you know it works on V12, we want to be able to share that with folks who are, you know, joining in and having a look for solutions on OpenNTF, to be able to be comfortable to know that that particular tool works on the version of Domino that they're running. The name of the tool is Data Moving Animal, and it's got a husky dog as the icon. There you go.
It's a really cool name.
Thank you, Per, for sending us the link.
Yeah, it is a really cool name. And you actually can write reviews. If you are registered and logged in user, you can write a review, like you said. If you find out that this still runs on Domino 12, even if it's 1 decade old, then yeah, then it's something that will enrich the project data.
Yeah, there's a comment though from Tom that says project rating and review is an idea. Well, you can already review, I guess. If you log in and go to the project page, I guess that you can leave a review now, so people will understand it. There is no rating, as far as I know, but the review is.
Sudar?
Both features are there. Actually, we should emphasize their usage more, and it's a way of contribution for, especially without developing any code. Anyone can write a review, short or long, for any project.
Sudar, your audio is broken.
On the stage a lot. I mean, we can definitely make them shiner. Hear me now? Hello.
Yeah, sorry, Serdar, it's Tom.
Do
But
you hear me?
yeah, we hear you.
You're broken up, Sudar. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, what I wanted to say about the reviews is that yeah, I know you can add reviews, but it doesn't show up in any. Well, it does show up if you open the project and you go to the reviews tab. But if you see to Google or whatever place where you can do ratings and reviews, maybe interesting projects can be referenced a bit more. Like, for example, the data moving animal tool. If it's a good tool and a lot of people like it, then you can do something like trending tools, or trending projects, or highly reviewed projects, so that they show up a bit more, and then people get to know it better.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. It's hidden under the hood somewhere in the project page. We should emphasize more. I mean, when you enter, when you open a project page, you should see more about ratings, others stuff, and compatibility metrics, etc. And also, we should prioritize. I mean, we should emphasize latest reviews, latest ratings, etc. more on the
the review on the page. And also, I'm looking at the page project on our website now. The only way you can sort it is for updated. Otherwise, they're in chronological order. So maybe have different views, like number of downloads, or some other way of viewing the list of the project could be good. It's a good suggestion by Tom. I think we have to discuss it at the next meeting, what we can do about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to add something from the chat, actually, we should talk more about what the project is. Project is, as Oliver pointed, it's some kind of overwhelming idea. And when you talk about project, you like talking about, I mean, either like a complete ticketing system or a very advanced plugin project like OpenNTF Domain API. It's not actually. I mean, that creates some kind of barrier in people's mind when we talk about projects, or when they see about project. There are over 100 projects with just the custom control, or just a script library, or just a simple, I mean, X pages code, or JavaScript library, or Java class, etc. So anything can be a project, as long as I mean, the difference between snippet and project has a life cycle. I mean, project can evolve in time. Snippet is one time thing, but this difference is not, I mean, clear enough, I guess. As others pointed out, it's becoming overwhelming for potential contributors.
Script library is a snippet, in my point of view. It will not evolve. If a project has to evolve, then we should rethink where people put contributions. And also, maybe we should categorize the project. Like, this is an admin tool, this is a library, this is something that does this kind of activity. I mean, in order to make it more easy for people to find it.
Wonderful. All right. Well, any other thoughts before we wrap up here? Been a little bit quiet, so we can give everybody back a few minutes in their day. Hearing none, I will say thank you very much to everyone for joining us and attending and participating in your community, our community. And we look forward to seeing you over on Discord. And we'll wrap it up there. Thanks again.
Thanks. Bye-bye.